Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Moss, host of the SOS Shout Out Show. Hope you guys are having a great day. Hope you had a great weekend. If you weren't with us for the weekend, as you know, I'm More Better Mondays. I'm trying to focus on things actually being more better. So today's topic is actually talking about your authentic self. You know, with so many things going on these days, it's easy to lose yourself in the context of what people want, expectations, drives, unexpected things, basically a part of just living life. But I found this space in something I was reading, um, and what I liked about it, it had a lot to do with happiness, and it wasn't just the idea that I'm happy, but it had a lot to do with the idea that this process is there's levels to being happiness and really being aware of our spaces, our potential, and our emotions. So today I'm going to talk about the authentic self. Not to be recognized, not to be mixed up with the organic self or the better self. You know, this is the self you have when you look in the mirror, you say, hey, listen, that's me. And whatever is there that's looking back at you, whether it's a lot of love, some warts, confusion, it is really the space that you're saying, these are the things that I can improve on, but also these are the things that make me me. You know, too often, like I said, you know, we want to live up to other people's expectations. I talk about social media, about looking at other people's lives, if you will, and comparing people who we don't even know to our own lives, their money, their possessions, and things of that nature. Today, I want to move away from that. You know, one of the things I've learned as a Muslim, as an African American, is watching my elders actually grapple with the idea of their authentic self. Sometimes they took to the marketplace and nobody bought it. You know, the precision, if you will, the precision, the discipline, and I want to also say just the steadfastness of being able to look at folks and say, these are the things I need for myself, but also these are the things I need for my community, my children. You know, it's a very, very, very nuanced thing. So today I thought for More Better Mondays, let's talk about getting better, not getting bitter. We don't do more bitter Mondays. We do more better Mondays. So I want to talk about the authentic self. I want to have a smile on my face. Hopefully we can put a smile on your face and really just take that little glow sometimes. Because sometimes we deal with a lot of things, our health, our families, our jobs. Like I said, these are things, of course, that are environments, man. But I read something today, something out of the Blue Ocean Strategy. And of course, that's for business, but it also talks about how people sometimes tie into environments. But we forget sometimes that people evolve environments. So the person you think has all this power, they're not necessarily as smart as you are. But sometimes people give over to the fact power to make them think that they're smarter than you are. And it's also in a roundabout way saying, you know, how can we learn to love ourselves better? So listen, this is Preacher Moss. This is a shout out show. Let's go and get started. Coming back with our authentic self. Let's get it started. Well, we want to first of all show some love to everybody celebrating the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. Very special time. It actually resonated with me talking about this whole authentic self. And the idea of sacrifice. You know, there's self-sacrifice and then there's self-serving sacrifice. And when I say self-serving sacrifice, brothers and sisters, I mean that, you know, we have to look at the elements and the aspects of self-care that a lot of times we go away from. So today is also going to be about talking about self-care, what it is we can do to heal ourselves, heal our families, heal our communities, if you will. I don't want it to be a situation where it's going to be textbook. I'm not going to be bringing in psychologists and psychiatrists. I can do that, and we probably will do that because mental wellness is a big issue in our communities. But that spiritual side, that authentic self, I want to talk about that person. You know, because sometimes I look around, I go, what happened? You ever go, whatever happened to old me? It wasn't the perfect me, but it was the old me. It was somebody I recognized. It was somebody I could be honest with. So we're going to get to that in a minute. First off, if you are coming to the Shout Out Show for the first time, we thank you for coming on the show. We hope that this segment, if you will, is going to be something where we spent your time wisely and you spent your time wisely. A lot of times on the More Better Mondays, like I said, we're trying to talk about things that make us better. So, in this aspect of this talk about authenticity, if you will, I'm gonna ask you to give me a little bit of patience because I'm going to be pulling from some different elements. Some of them are spiritual, some of them not so spiritual, but I think the whole idea is we're trying to move to a modality of wellness and consistency in our wellness, meaning that we're also able to recognize things that affect us as people, as families, as world citizens, if you will, and really just be able to break that down. You know, we want to get to there's a business term called the lean startup. It's about startup businesses. It's lean startup, and they have a term called the MVP. Now, most people think of the MVP as the most valuable person. No, the authentic self is the MVP, and that MVP is the most valuable person. So we're going to get to that. If you're on the show for the first time, jump in the comment section. Let us know what you think, and we'll let you know what we think. But you're part of a very special community, brothers and sisters. And I do not use the word community lightly. The people who come on the show, everyone from myself, the host, to Sister Satana, who works that back end for everybody, she and everyone on the show has value. And I just want to say, from all myself, particularly my authentic self, I appreciate and love everything you guys do. And it makes me a better citizen. It makes me a better host, but it makes me a better human being, if you will, to see the gratitude that people have, not towards me, but just the gratitude they have towards life and how they approach it. So I don't want to ramble on, but if you also come for the Shout Out Show for the first time, please jump in the comment section. Let us know what you want to say. I said that before, but also click that subscribe button, notification button, the like button if it's there for you. If you liked it, click it. I want to say also, I don't know how to happen. We're up to 167 subscriptions, brothers and sisters. We got two more. Like I said, hey, a blessing is a blessing. Be happy. Now, here's my favorite part of the story. But the favorite part of the Shadow Show story every day, the narrative, is I get to introduce the Shadow Show family, soldiers, the star in the building. We want to go ahead and start out. First up, we got Sister Ree. Ree, you've been in Miami a long time. I'm thinking you're going to come back Cuban, sister. Make sure you're all right now. Just checking in. We hope everything's going all right with you and your friend. Thank you so much, Sister Ree. Sister Ree is our dietitian. She's a craft services director, if you will. Peace and blessings to you and your friend, Sister Ree. Talk to you soon. Next up, I call him Mr. 6 o'clock. All talk Rashid, straight up, straight down. Always. Why like my salon off of Tua by the Katu. Always on the telecast, always on the broadcast, bringing intelligence, bringing compassion, bringing good feelings, good vibes. He is the Canadian ambassador to the show, making sure the quality of the show works out on this side of the border and that side of the border. All tough. Thank you for coming. Next up, the main man, Adam Khan, my Canadian Robin. When I come through, I'm Batman and he is Robin. Adam, is always good to see you, man. My brother, make sure that you give a big hug and a big Dul Hijra shout out to your family, brother. And to everybody. For those who don't know what Dul Hijra is, maybe I'll jump into it a little bit, because really, Dul Hijra is really about finding out who you are. This is actually what sparked this whole thing about the authentic self, finding out who you are. And when you get there, being okay with that person, having that conversation, figure out what you want to do moving forward. So next up, we got San Diego. San Diego. Santiago. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for coming on, sister. Hope that you are doing well and your health is well and your move has been successful. I know you're making some moves, and everybody, please keep her in your duas. Just trying to go back and get that education. You know how it is when we get older. We want to do it, but life interrupts. But she's about to make some crucial decisions about the track she wants to do for education. And I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that everybody has duas up for Sister Santiago. All right. Next up, we got the consultant producer of the show. Of course, that would be Miss Satana Whitfield. Let me tell y'all a little bit about Satana, because she don't like to come on the show. She don't want people to brag on her. For anybody who is attempting to run a business and you need a certain amount of direction, discipline, creativity, but also nuance in terms of being able to see something where it is and where it needs to go, I'm telling you guys, you need to consult with Sister Satana. While she is the consultant producer on the show, she's also she's a content producer. When I say content producer, brothers and sisters, you know me. I have a lot of ideas that are running around. But to be able to frame them and even bring them to a platform like the ShOUT Show doesn't happen on its own, meaning I don't do it on myself. Meaning that Sister Satana helps me frame these ideas. And as we moved along, we've done a lot of shows. But here's the thing I can say about the shows. The shows have been engaging. The shows have been, they haven't been redundant. We've had themes, but we haven't repeated a concept, if you will. And that has to do a lot with the framing of the show. Sister Satana has a lot to do with that, making sure that there's an evolution of everything we're going to be talking about on the show. If you actually watch her shows, she may give you a subject matter. You may not see her for a month or 2 months, but when she comes back, what I like is that she's giving you breadcrumbs from the last conversation. And those breadcrumbs are so important, brothers. This is because, part of this job is to engage and entertain, but you also want to inform people. We are Muslims. We are a culture and religion of information and cultural exchange. So big shout out to Sister Satana. Now, you got my little brother on the show. What's going on? Johnny Thomas, JT. That's what I call him. I don't call him Johnny L. Thomas. I call him JT. I've been calling him JT since Hatchet was a hammer. What's going on, little brother? Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, man. Peace and blessings to your family. Tell your nephews, man, they can check on their uncle every once in a while. I'm just out here getting old. They can check on their uncle, all three of them. You line them all up and tell them, check on your uncle. Especially, people say, especially that middle one. No, all of them. I want to hear from all of them. Every once in a while, I put them on the show. I'm going to put all of them on the show just so I can look at them. I'm getting at that age now. We don't take things for granted. You say, well, I need to lay eyes on you. I need to lay eyes on my nephews. And you too, JT. So let's talk about the authentic self. This is not some philosophical conversation that we're going to have. It begins and ends with the fact that you know you. You know your aspirations, you know your inspiration, and I say the authentic self, man, because there's just so many things out here that propagate that we be something other than who we are. That somehow the value assessment of who we actually are is just not enough. And sometimes it's not in our eyes, but it's in society's eyes. I was having a conversation with a very, very good friend of mine about the psychological aspect of when people move away from the authentic self. Now, let me talk about the authentic self. This is not the perfected self, okay? This is not the perfected self. This is not the organic self. This is, and let me say this too. Sometimes the authentic self is not pretty. It's not pretty. It's not refined. It may not be disciplined. But the authentic self is a thing that gives us a building block for how we get better. I tell people all the time, my authentic self is not my better self. Sometimes I bring my authentic self to a problem. People are like, what? Who was that? Because that is the basis of how I'm making decisions. Whether it be in business or relationships, sometimes you have to understand that authentic self is the one that's not going to lie to you. I had a very good friend, and he dealt with addiction for quite a number of years. Obviously, most of our relationship, from times we were young, he was always addicted to something. And we talked about addiction. I mean, he had gotten off the drugs and on the drugs and off the drugs and on the drugs. And we had a falling out. And the falling out, sadly, was me wanting him to be something than he actually was. Me wanting him to be cured so I felt better about him. Not understanding that he had to feel better about him. And we had a big fallout about it. And what he told me after I came to my senses and I'm like, I did him wrong and I apologize. And I asked his forgiveness. And he said something to me. He says, well, for what it's worth. He said, for what it's worth. He said, with the drugs and the alcohol, every once in a while, there's a position or a scenario of clarity. He said that clarity was important because once you're out of the fog and the haze, if you will, you really look at you. You really look at you and you say, can I really look at the reflection of the person that's looking back at me? Knowing that the person in the mirror, I know everything about that person. The highs, the lows, the celebrations, the failures, the good, the bad, the ugly, if you will. And he said, can you stand there and look at that person in the mirror? And he said, for years with addiction, he never wanted to look at the mirror. His authentic self was the most powerful thing in the world. He said, and getting back to that level of consciousness, to that truth teller, the person that was lucid, even in these small pockets of sobriety, he said it was a very, very empowering thing. And a lot of times people, we talk about addiction, a lot of times we're addicted. We're addicted to what environments we're in. We are malleable, if you will. If you're in a room with a bunch of people that are making money, well, doggone, you want to make a bunch of money. Sometimes the peer pressure. You're in a room with a bunch of people that want to do drugs, you do that. Or even without drugs. If you're in a room with a bunch of people who are backbiting, you'll backbite. And you go against your authentic self. Over the years, I've learned that sometimes expressing your authentic self to people can be costly. You can lose friends. You can lose jobs. You can lose opportunities. But when you're dealing with your authentic self, you know what you can't lose? You can't lose you. And in a period, brothers and sisters, where some people are so detached, like we literally live in we live in a time where people are so detached from society, from reality, that I find in some regards that it is scary that people are living dual existences. Is it okay to be you these days? I was having this conversation. Is it okay to be you? A very wise friend of mine, I won't say his name. I'll talk about him later because I'm going to do a show about him. He told me that in society, the rationale for heroes is that you have people that will lend to looking at other people and what they do, and they will admire what they perceive as that person's authentic self. So you not only have heroes, you also have superheroes that can do superhuman things beyond human capacity. It's the whole idea of a superhero. One of my friends said to me, he said, you don't understand society. We were talking about the authentic self. He said, there are people who need heroes because they're afraid of mirrors. There are people who need to look at other people, have assessments of other people, and place value on other people because they're afraid of mirrors. They're afraid of a reflection that's going to have to ask the question, who are you? What do you stand for? Why aren't we changing? Why aren't we evolving? All these quiet questions, that plague all of us. Let's just be honest. It plagues all of us. It should never be an issue where you're thinking, I'm not doing everything I can. I'm not my best self. I'm not able to do X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's family. There's a whole lot of things that we should be, really, really clear about. But I look at it from this other angle too. You need the authentic self. You need the authentic self to appreciate your own evolution, your own victories, your own, it's because the authentic self is like a barometer for me. I don't know about everybody else, but it's like a barometer. When I have a good show, if you will, Think about this. When I have a good show, you know what I think about? When I didn't have a good show. And all the elements that went into me not having a good show. And trying to figure out what the tweaks and adjustments were that I made so I could have a good show. What's my attitude? Did I eat well? What's my diet? Did I get enough sleep? Did I actually prepare and go through material? Did I go through the exercise of making sure that the crowd was comfortable before I moved into doing material? It was the same thing as an educator. Of course, we're talking about dealing with youth, and also as an outreach worker. Save all the etiquette and all of that. When you're teaching or you're doing social work, even religious work, you're in the business of saving lives. And the thing that people really attach to is when you're genuine, when you're okay. I remember dealing with a client one time, and we were talking about drugs and alcohol. And I realized that when I talked to him, I talked about when he was doing alcohol. And that conversation was about him doing alcohol. And the breakthrough came through when he asked me, have you ever done alcohol? You're a Muslim? I said, absolutely. And we had a conversation about our authentic selves, but we had a conversation about the mistakes we made on the way to correcting our mistakes. One of the things that a lot of kids these days deal with is the fact that parents won't let kids be their authentic selves. We want them to be something right away. We want you to be something right away, right here, right now. Like the military. The military wants that recruit to be a soldier right away, because all the value is, are you going to be a good soldier? And parents, we want our kids to be great right away. Knowing that, heck, we weren't great right away, and some of us weren't great for a long time. Some of us never got the great. We got the good. In that space, though, I've learned, and I'm sure many of you have, I've learned to appreciate the authentic self. The guy that wasn't perfect. The guy that made mistakes. I've appreciated to the point that sometimes I'll call people and remind them that I wasn't that person and apologize for the times I thought I was right when I was really arrogant. For the times I was stubborn when I was just being prideful. For the times I was unavailable emotionally because I was selfish. This is, in many regards, it's a blessing. It's a barakah. We're in the month of Dhul Hijjah. And the narrative of Dhul Hijjah is, we talk about the sacrifices of Abraham. Now, this is through all Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Islam, Christianity. But we talk about the sacrifices of Abraham. And they're numerous. But we talk about the space of believing. And in the space of believing is interesting because, we have levels to it. And I find this is really important to the authentic self. There's levels to your authentic self. And they switch, and sometimes it's this and that, and the combinations go together. Sometimes they clash. That's life. But we talk about Abraham as a believer. He believes that his Lord is his Lord. And he believes that whatever is decreed by his Lord, he's going to do. Long story short, he's asked to sacrifice his son. He's asked to sacrifice his son. And he had a conversation with his son where he says, son, I just had this conversation with God. I got to sacrifice you. And the son goes, think no more. You got to sacrifice me. Now, we all know the story that, he doesn't sacrifice his son. But it was the idea that even in that situation, this is not the faithful self that he's talking about. This is not the believer he's talking about. In his core, he is the authentic self, and all of those wrapped around it. You know, I was just going through a book called Blue Ocean Strategy. It's like a remix of this book. The original Blue Ocean Strategy is a business book. And here's the thing I pulled from this business book, and I might be making a stretch. Most of the things I tried to do, and I'm sure a lot of you tried to do in business, we were trying to beat the competition. That's what we were trying to do. African American existence and civil rights and everything that's moved, it has largely to do with beating the competition. But then I looked back at the activities and achievements of people who were actually slaves. And they had it right. They weren't trying to beat the competition. They were trying to make the competition irrelevant. Do you understand what I'm saying? They were trying to make the competition irrelevant. While there was slavery, they still established lifestyle. They still established religion. They somehow still established social life, community, and education. And they realized that we can't do it with this model. They didn't want to be in competition with this model. They established religion, and the religion still stands today. One of the most powerful things in the world, of course, is the Black church. And it's built upon the fact that we don't want competition in the way of how we worship, in the way how we see our relationships with God. And it's built so much. And I realized in slavery, you had to be your authentic self because everything else was taken away. They never wanted to see a better self, inspiration, aspiration. Those are the things they wanted. They wanted absolute servitude. And in that servitude, I realized that there's a genius, there's a regalness that these people had that we are missing. And maybe the idea about getting back to your authentic self is that you don't want to be in competition with anybody else. You, in many regards, want to render those people obsolete. You want to render those people irrelevant. And that allows you to get to you. Even these crazy facades of who we are and the airs we put on, cut them out. Get to your authentic nature, if you will. Your fitra, if you will. Get to your fitra, your natural, as Imam Kazemawa was said, your natural disposition. And I think when you get to your natural disposition, you're gonna be a lot happier. I know I am. So listen, that's the show for today. For myself, to all of you and your authentic self, I hope you enjoyed this show. Shout out to Miss Eleanor. Shout out to my mom, the dynamic duo at it again. Also, again, I want to shout out to all those people who are fasting during Dhul Hijjah and all those that had intentions to fast. I'm one of them, but hopefully, inshallah, I'll be back in the game, brothers and sisters, sooner or later. And in closing, that authentic stuff that I talk about, give that person a hug. Appreciate it and say thank you for being there. With all the foolishness going around, thank you for being you so I didn't lose myself. All right, let's get to our sponsors. I want to give a shout out to BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. Again, that's BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. If you don't want to go to the website, you can simply call 1-888-496-6845. Again, that's 1-888-496-6845. Also, want to give a shout out to Bayan Islamic Graduate School. If you're thinking about getting a quality Islamic graduate school education, you don't want to sleep on Bayan. You can work on your doctorate at Bayan. You can work on getting a chaplaincy, a certificate, the MDiv if you want to, Islamic Studies, Islamic Leadership, Islamic Education. They got it all there. All you need to do is go to the website, which is bayanonline.org. Again, that's bayanonline.org, brothers and sisters. Listen, this has been a pleasure. I hope you were able to pull something out of it. And I just want to say thank you for letting me talk about it a little bit. All the thoughts sometimes are not going to be as complete as I like them because, like many of you, I'm evolving these ideas, but I enjoy my authentic self. And it's funny to look at me when I'm not trying to be perfect or I'm not trying to be the best. Yeah, and I appreciate that person that struggles, just like you, warts and all. But that's who we are and that's who we come from. And it has a purpose. All right. I'm Preacher Mars. This is the SOS. See you tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shout out show. Yo, assalamu alaikum. I'm Preacher Mars, comedian extraordinaire, but I like to add a new title to my name. I'm Professor Preacher Mars. You know why? Because I just graduated. Wait a minute. Let me get this out of here. This is it. Okay. I'm Professor Preacher Mars, and it's come through the courtesy and the blessing of the Muhammad Ali Scholarship, which came through Bayan Islamic Graduate School. Now, listen, I know a lot of you people are thinking, can I do it? Yes, you can do it. This is the part where I'm supposed to say it's easy. It's not easy. Listen, it was easy to get this degree. Trump would be a mufti. I digress. Listen, though, for you brothers and sisters that are interested, go to bayanonline.org, and you could be like me. Put yourself in the picture for Islamic education. Wait a minute, there's a picture right there. Sound like them, everybody. Take care. Preach them off.